and welcome back to the NSE 5 journey. We're going to continue with the second part of the system settings. If you need to contact me, you can do it here via YouTube, on LinkedIn or Twitter. So where are we on the plan? Still on the second stage on the system settings. The first part of the system settings, we discussed the difference between VMs and virtual, use cases, where you would deploy it. We had a review of the basic network settings and how to factory restore, backup and restore a configuration on the FortiManager. In this next couple of videos, we want to look about the administrative side of things, about administrative profiles, creating admin accounts and how we would lock that down, and the different types of authentication that the FortiManager offers. So first I want to have a discussion around something called admin profiles. First we create our profiles and then assign those profiles to accounts. And the profiles allow us to assign permissions, whether that's read or write permissions, to a particular account. Now the FortiManager itself comes with a few built-in system admin profiles. They are first of all the super user. The super user cannot be modified, and it's the only built-in profile that can't be modified. The others can, but not necessarily needed to be. It's better to kind of create your own from scratch rather than playing around with the defaults. So with the super user, all system and device permissions are enabled. So that means that if someone logs in with the super user, they'll just see all the tabs along the top, including the system settings tab, and they could modify the permissions of other users. We also have something called the standard user. So no system permissions enabled. This essentially means the system settings tab along the top is not accessible, it doesn't appear there. But they do have the ability to read and write all device permissions. We also have a restricted user, the same as standard, but ultimately it's read-only. Last but not least is the policy package. These profiles have read and write access to the policy tabs, so they can modify policy packages, but they only have read access to the systems and other permissions stated. What I want to do is spend a bit more time on the FortiManager and actually creating these profiles and playing with them, rather than actually going through a slide deck, because it would probably help reinforce the knowledge that you are required to actually pass the exam. As far as modifying the profile accounts, and the profiles will be under the system settings admin profile section. Okay, so here we are, we're at the front door of the FortiManager. Let's log in with my credentials. Click on the system settings, and on the left hand side under the admin we're going to click on profile. We can see that there's 4 profiles pre-populated for us: the restricted user, the standard user, super user and package user. 3 out of 4 of these profiles can be modified, the super user cannot be. If we try to modify it, you'll notice at the bottom there is no way to actually confirm the settings, only the return button. Whereas if we were to click on the standard user, we can make the change, press OK, and they're saved. If we want to create a new one, we can click create new. We can give it a name, give it a description, set the type. Now for this demonstration we're going to be using the system admin. The restricted admin will come on shortly, further on the presentation. Once the profile name, description and type has been selected, we can choose what permissions we'd like to give this person. So let's, for example, assume we want full policy access for the particular person, but we don't want them to make any VPN changes. Hit apply, and you can see the test has been created. The next administrative profile type is the restricted administrative profiles. They're only supported in the newer FortiManager from 5.2.0 or later, and it's a restricted admin type that allows you to only modify particular security profiles within a particular device. So an example would be, let's say we have a FortiManager managing multiple FortiGates, and one of those FortiGates the customer wanted web filtering access. They wanted to ensure that they can allow what websites a particular person or particular device can browse to. Giving them a restricted administrative profile access to that particular device inside that particular add-on will then enable them to log on to the FortiManager using that restricted profile and create those changes. It's set up the same way ultimately as the administrative profiles through the same method: system settings, admin, profile, and then create new. We give it a name, we give it a comment, but we select the restricted section instead of the system. And what we'll do is we'll jump into the FortiManager and have a look at that now. Right, here we are back in the FortiManager, and now we want to create a administrative profile with a more restricted access. So we're going to click on create new. We're going to give this a name. Type, we're going to do restricted, and we'll select what sort of restriction we want to give it. So in this case, we only want to give it the web filter profile, and we press OK. Now we've created our profiles and we know what sort of permissions we want to give an individual. Now we have to actually create that individual and create what ADOM that person will live in and how that particular person is going to authenticate, whether that's through a centralized authentication method like LDAP or Radius, or whether it's going to be a local authentication on the database within the FortiManager. To do that, pretty straightforward, same place: system settings, admin, administrators, and we're going to go in there and we're going to create a new administrator. We'd give them a name, email address, contact details, and then assign them to a particular ADOM, and then put the profile we previously created against that particular admin. If we wanted to use the centralized authentication method like Radius, LDAP or TACACS, then we can do that, but in order to do that we have to first create globally that authentication method. So what we'll do is we'll jump into the FortiManager and we'll have a look at these settings. Back into the FortiManager, we're on the system settings page, and previously we went from the system settings, admin, profile, and we created the profile test. Now that profile's been created, we need to add it to an administrator who we would like to give those permissions to. So to do that, system settings, admin, administrator. You can see an administrator already exists. It's the admin. It's a local account. It's got the super user profile. It's allowed to modify all packages, and the status is green, shows that it's enabled and it's actually logged in. We go create new. It'll come up with the boxes we need to fill in to actually create this user. So let's give this user a name. We're going to call him Bob. Description, we'll say he's the head of IT. Password type, so this goes back to whether we want a local username and password stored on the FortiManager, or whether we want to utilize some sort of remote authentication or centralized authentication method. If we were to select one of those centralized authentication methods, we then have to select what server. So we may have multiple Radius servers, we may have multiple TACACS servers, and we'd have to select which one to use. As you'll notice, the drop down itself is blank. The reason it's blank is because we have no TACACS configuration. We have no Radius configured. And prior to actually creating this as a Radius or TACACS user on the firewall, we need to go over here to the remote auth server and actually create the type of central authentication we require. For now, we're just going to actually create a local user. So again, create new. His name was Bob. He's the head of IT. He's a local username and as a local account, sorry. I'm going to give him a password. Profile. Now these are what we've discussed already. We know what the restricted user, standard user, super user, and package user are all built in. And we have the test one that we've previously created. What you'll notice here is we don't have the ADOM. No options here to actually say only a particular ADOM can head of IT, Bob, actually see. Maybe he's the head of IT of a particular customer. Yeah, customer A for example, and we only want him to see the ADOM of customer A. Now the reason that option doesn't appear is because ADOMs has not been enabled. So to do that, system settings, dashboard, and under the system information widget, we can go under the administrative domain section, click enable. Okay, it will kick us out to rearrange the GUI, and as we log in, you'll notice top left hand corner we'd have now selected ADOMs. Let's create an ADOM by going to System Settings, and then from here going on All ADOMs. Let's create one. Let's give it a name. Call it Test 1. Let's say this ADOM is going to be for a FortiGate running version 5.0. It's going to be a normal ADOM. And we have no devices currently into the FortiManager, so let's just press OK for now and create that ADOM. Now that ADOM has been created, let's go back to the administrators to create new, and you'll notice a new option has appeared where we can give all ADOMs, or we can select the ADOM that we previously created. When you select it, you notice that it adds multiple ADOMs as a list, so we can either remove the existing ones to give them access just to test 1, or we can give all ADOMs. So it's very, very flexible what we can do here. We'll fill out the contact details of Bob and trusted host. This is quite important because it allows you to actually lock down where Bob can log in from. Hopefully the FortiManager has been provisioned behind a FortiGate, so it's already in a secure environment. However, if that's not the case, or there's company security policies that ensures that every device has to be locked down, then you can actually input, for example, an IP address or a subnet that would then suggest that only Bob can log in from this particular source IP range. So you can lock down the FortiManager even further on top of the protection it has further upstream. Maybe that's a FortiGate or another Cisco ASA file or whatever that may be. Once we're happy with the settings, we'll click OK. So let's just quickly fill them in here. We're going to give him the test admin profile that we created under the profile section. We'll give him access to the ADOM called test 1, and we're locked down. We'll give him, let's say it's bob@gmail.com as his contact details, and obviously phone number, sorry. We'll pop in what we want. Press OK, and you can see that now Bob is being created. It's currently disabled, meaning he's not logged in. So from here, if we wanted to see if Bob was actually on, and we went into the FortiManager and we're presented with the dashboard, we would go to System Settings, Administrator, and just here you'll be able to see whether Bob is logged in or is not, and a quick overview of any of the information that we've set for Bob. Just to review what we've learned during this lesson, we've discussed about creating admin profiles and what type of admin profiles you can create, whether that's system admin profiles or restricted. We talked about the differences between them, whereas system admin allows you to have access to network settings, device management and policy, whereas the restricted admin gives you a subset of security profiles within a particular FortiGate. So for example, maybe you want an admin to only have access to change the IPS or the web filtering. That would be the restricted admin. Once we create those profiles and we're happy with the permissions that we want to give an individual, we then create that individual using the admin accounts. While we're creating those admin accounts, we need to think about how that admin account is going to authenticate. Is that going to be local on the device itself, or is it going to be a remote centralized device like Radius, TAC Express or LDAP? Once we've created that user and we've locked them down using the trusted host section and decided what type of authentication method we're going to use, we then looked about how you would verify the admin status. Is that person logged in? And maybe we need to contact that admin, so we need to get his email address or his telephone number. We discuss how you can look about doing that. I hope this lesson has been informative. I'd like to thank you for viewing. If it has been helpful, please do like and subscribe.